Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just did a quick story here on Caleb Williams and the Bears, sitting him and the starters for the Hall of Fame game, the first NFL action of the 2024-2025 season, officially taking place on Thursday. The Bears will sit their starters. That's pretty normal, honestly, but we do have a trade deadline in the MLB to keep you updated on. There have been a bunch of massive trades, just in the last hour. The Marlins are making moves. I have loved what the Marlins have done. We'll talk about what they did today, and then tomorrow we'll probably put them in my winners section, unless anything crazy happens, though. We'll do winners and losers tomorrow once everything's done and the dust have settled. But before we get into these brand new deals, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to GSMCPodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate every single one of you guys for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday trade deadline afternoon. But like I was saying, we are going to get into some of that trade deadline talk, starting with the Orioles, who have been busy dealing pitchers today. The most recent trade that they made, sending Tanner Scott to the Padres. The Padres, who, are always big swingers in these free agency, are always big swingers in these trade deadline periods, at least recently. They go and they get Tanner Scott, who's one of the best relievers left on the market, one of the best closers out there. They give up quite the haul to get him. We're talking about 4 prospects. They give up pitcher Robbie Snelling, pitcher Adam Mazur, and 2 infielders, Graham Pauley and Jay Bashirs. A couple of those guys you might have heard of before. Adam Mauser, Jay Bashirs. These are not, top prospects, but that is a lot to give up for Tanner Scott. Now, Tanner Scott, and the reason I say it's a lot to give up is not because Tanner Scott is bad. It's because Tanner Scott doesn't have any years of control past this year. They're giving up 4 prospects for a great closer. I mean, looking at his numbers, 1.18 ERA, holding batters to a 127 batting average this season. In 17, he hasn't allowed a run in 17 straight starts. That is insane. He recently did a non-consecutive no-hitter, or perfect game, where he had 27 straight outs. That is insane. That is not easy to do. That never happens. His over his last 2 seasons, he's got the lowest ERA of any pitcher, 1.89. He's a great closer. The Padres are getting a great back-end guy, something that they desperately needed. Adding that to the pen is just a lot to give up. And like I said, I think the Marlins have been, doing a really, really good job as far as replenishing their farm system. This is a lost season. They've already made a trade with the Padres before Luis Arias early on in the season, so why not one-stop shop for the Padres at that down in Miami, right? But they also made another big trade the Marlins made, this time with the Orioles. They send starting pitcher they send a starting pitcher over, something that they desperately needed. We're talking a team that doesn't really have a lot of holes outside of starting pitching, but they send Trevor Rogers over to the O's in exchange for 2 almost MLB ready prospects. We're talking about, this is a trade that I thought the O's overpaid quite a lot for. I'm not a big fan of this trade, to be completely honest with you. I really thought the Orioles would be able to hold on to it. Trevor Rogers is a great pitcher, right? And he's going to be huge for the Marlins to go out. For the O's when they're trying to chase a title. Adding him and Eflin to that starting rotation is really important after losing Bradish and John Means. This is a team that desperately needed that help, but it's just so much. I really, really think they could have gotten. I know Eric Fetty went. To the Cardinals yesterday for a lot as well in a 3-team trade, but I feel like they could have gotten a guy like that for that kind of package, who honestly I like a little bit more than Rodgers. At least this season he comes with a little more control. But I do really like what the Marlins are doing. I love this system that they're building down there in Miami. Lil Fettuccini asks, what are the chances of the Seattle Mariners making the playoffs this year? I want to say high. I want to believe in this team. I really like the move for Randy Arozarena. It's paying immediate dividends. It's working. They have one of the best pitching staffs in the league. They've added some great bullpen help this deadline. They just needs the bats to go. The pickup of Victor Robles, whatever Seattle did that Washington wasn't doing, it's turned him into a hitter somehow. If they can get Julio Rodriguez back and he can, bring his bat back to, the MVP-esque level that he was at before, this is a Mariners team that can make a run. It's very concerning how bad the bats have been. They obviously just DFA/trade Ty France over there to the Reds. This is a team that has a lot of talent, and we've seen it. They obviously had that huge lead in the division, which they've now squandered and given up. If their bats are able to get going, they are a playoff team, no doubt in my mind. But the way it's going right now, I'm a little less certain to say that they're going to make the playoffs. We talk about a wild card race that is incredibly close right now, even in the AL. I mean, Boston is nipping there. You have the Mariners who, while they're not, while they're not in the wild card, they've got a chance. They're only 2.5 games out. The Yankees, they're going to make the playoffs. They got a 5.5 game lead, 4.5 on the Twins, who are second, 5.5 on the Royals, who are third. Like I said, Boston is in that mix. The Rays have made a lot of interesting moves. I feel like they're going to start to fall, but with how the Rays have been, they'll figure out a way to keep going, right? But I don't really see a way, unless the bats really get going, that Seattle makes the playoffs. And like I said, I want to say yes. I want to believe in this Seattle team. It's just a tough competition in the AL. And I think, and for a wild card, really, I think their best chance is is staying with the Astros in the division, which I think they might be able to do. Obviously, right now, they're still tied in that division. The Rangers are making up ground, closing quickly, 3.5 games out of both of them. But the way that Houston's playing, they've been playing better. They've been an improving team, while Seattle's been a declining team. So, unless something changes, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I think their best shot is the division outside of the wild card, though, and I'm not going to rule it out 100%. But I'm going to give them. Let's give them a number here. I'm going to give them like a 40% chance to make the playoffs. Not guaranteed, but they've definitely got a good shot at it. Outside of that, there are still a lot of other deadline moves. We talk about, so we'll just stay in the AL here. Cleveland just made a big move, not something that they usually do. They go ahead and get Lane Thomas from the Washington Nationals, giving up 3 prospects, 3 top 30 guys, including their number 8 overall prospect pitcher to the Nats. It's an overpay, and I feel like, and maybe it's just me, if you guys feel differently, feel free to let me know, but I feel like this is a lot of overpayments happening. There hasn't been too many trades where I've been like, yeah, that makes sense. I feel like in almost every trade, the prospects being given back are a lot, especially for these relievers that we've seen, and we've seen a lot of high-priced relievers go. There's an insane amount of relievers that have been going for the price that they've been going at, which that's one of those things that I don't quite understand. But this is the time you have to be aggressive, right? The Mets are adding. They went out and got Paul Blackburn. Josh Bell was moved at the deadline yet again. He gets moved over to the D-backs, adding a bat that they need. Again, the Marlins are I really like their deadline. They might have my favorite deadline. They've done really, really good with what they have. Now, that does involve trading everybody away again. Second time in within 10 years that they've traded everyone that they've had to continue to be kind of these perennial disappointing teams. But I do think this is a team that if some of their prospects can go, they can build something good here. I really do like what the Marlins have done. I think they've had my favorite deadline so far. But like I said, we'll do winners and losers tomorrow. Once all the dust have settled. Josh Bell to the D-backs, I think, is a really good trade. Like I was saying, he's not the same all-star level player that he was with the Nationals or the Pirates back 5 years ago or so. But he's still serviceable. He's a good bat. Christian Walker goes on the injured list. That's a good replacement bat, a good high level bat to have for situations later on down the line. But like I said, I will keep you updated on any other major trade that gets taken place in the next 39 minutes. That's all we have left on the deadline. I'd like to see, again, as a Nats fan, I'd like to see them make a couple more moves. I'd like to see Kyle Finnegan get moved, especially with how much the reliever market's been going. Him, Dylan Floro, I'd like to see get moved, as well as, I want to see if the White Sox will be able to get a deal done for Luis Robert. Doesn't sound like Garrett Crochet is getting traded. He seems like he's, I guess, a long-term plan or a long-term piece for the White Sox, but I'm very excited to see where the rest of these trade deadline goes. Again, 39 minutes, just 39 minutes to get your trades in. We will take you right up to the deadline this year. I'm very excited to go ahead and do that with you. But we're going to move on to our next segment, take a quick break from baseball outside of any breaking news, which I will update you on. We're going to talk about the NCAA house settlement that has to do with college football. A lot has been going on in college football recently, whether that be, conference realignment, NIL deals, the new video game. We'll talk about all of that, how that's going to affect the future of college football, and more. Coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.